Coming up on this week's Q30 Newscast, Thanksgiving is right around the corner. Find out how travel advisories may impact you. Plus, changes are on the horizon for the physical therapy program. Also, learn more about Quinnipiac's new Title IX coordinator. All this and more coming up on the Q30 Newscast. Hello and welcome to the Q30 Newscast. I'm Cassidy Berger, coming to you from my hometown of Albany, New York. Quinnipiac has returned to an orange campus alert level. As of November 23rd, the total number of active cases in isolation was 64, a notable decline from last week's 168. Test results from last week showed a 3.2% positive test rate, with 39 total confirmed COVID-19 cases. This brings Quinnipiac's cumulative total number of cases to 509. And while Quinnipiac has seen a decline in cases, the state of Connecticut's numbers are on the rise. As of November 23rd, Connecticut has a total of 107,280 cases. The state currently has 891 residents hospitalized with the virus, and there have been 4,881 total COVID-19 associated deaths. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont has updated the state's travel restrictions. The U.S. Virgin Islands and Vermont were the latest state and territory added to the list. No states or territories were removed. At this point, New Jersey, New York, and Rhode Island all meet the criteria to join the list of states, but the governor's office says due to the interconnected nature of the region, they will not be added to the list. Anyone traveling into Connecticut from the listed states and territories must quarantine for 14 days. The CDC urges people to stay home and avoid traveling for Thanksgiving. They say if you are traveling, to check travel restrictions before you go, get your flu shot before you travel, always wear a mask in public settings, maintain social distancing, wash your hands often, and avoid touching your face. Bringing your own food, drinks, plates, and utensils can make the holidays safer, as well as keeping gatherings outdoors. Of course, after Thanksgiving comes Black Friday. The popular shopping day will look very different this year, with social distancing and other health and safety guidelines. Walmart and other retailers have announced plans to close their stores on Thanksgiving Day this year. These retailers, including Target and Dick's Sporting Goods, have also implemented month-long deals in hopes to spread out the crowds. Black Friday marks the start of several popular days of shopping, with Cyber Monday expected to see a rise in participation. The adjustment to a remote learning environment provides unique challenges for each academic program. It has announced a drastic decision for next year's clinical rotations. For more on this, we go to Hannah Mursky.
Coronavirus has put pressure on a ton of universities this past year, and while Quinnipiac was able to remain not much affected, students in their entry-level Master's Physician Assistant program are now seeing changes. Physician assistant students received an email on November 12th stating the cancellation of PY 400 due to the large junior class, lack of preceptors, and backlog from second-year students that could potentially delay their graduation. A second-year student does not feel as worried as the juniors might feel.
We used to have pre-clinicals the spring semester of our sophomore year, and they canceled that, and it got moved to the fall of our junior year. I think if anyone is going to be impacted by this, it's going to be the juniors.
Though sophomores will be able to make their spring semester clinicals up during fall of 2021, juniors will have their clinical rotation course canceled completely.
The juniors in the fall of their senior year are also supposed to have pre-clinicals, and there just aren't enough proctors.
A junior who asked to be kept anonymous was disappointed with Quinnipiac's decision. They said, quote, "Not only have the juniors had shortened EMT class, ride time, and pre-clinicals, we have now had our only clinical experience taken away," end quote. The junior says Quinnipiac promised them a state-of-the-art program and feels they lost out on a ton of physical experience.
They want to give the opportunities to both of us, and they at least have had some clinicals and we haven't at all.
Some students and parents asked the department if there could be another option so they could get their proper amount of experience, but were encouraged to seek opportunities or to shadow. For Q30 News, Hannah Mursky.
Quinnipiac Health Center staff are urging students to stay on top of their mental health, especially those in quarantine or social isolation.
That reminder of, I do need to get sleep. Sleep is so important so that you can be alert and cognitive and function. When you are functioning on no sleep, man, it compounds everything. The stress is just magnified.
2 Quinnipiac medical students recently won the Regional Research Innovations in Clinical Vignettes poster competition. The competition was hosted by the Society of Hospitalist Medicine. The two students, Nicole McAmis and Angela Mirabella, won the top prizes in the research and innovations categories, respectively.
It was really nice that they're kind of recognizing the fact that, human trafficking is definitely something that we all need to know a little bit more about, and we all need to talk about it.
I think that if you have an opportunity that comes your way, and if you're able to do it, just do it and don't have this expectation that something will come out of it. I, just tried and I worked hard with the expectation that hopefully something will happen.
There's promising news on the horizon for a coronavirus vaccine. For this and more national news, we have VANESSA BLASI.
As college students are settling back into their homes and families are getting ready for Thanksgiving, there is certainly a lot to talk about. Let's get right into it. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic is still prevailing at concerningly high rates. In fact, just yesterday, November 24th, nearly 2,100 people died of the coronavirus, making it the deadliest day since May 6th, when there was a reported 2,611 total COVID-19 deaths, according to the Washington Post. Hospitals are also beginning to see this spike as the number of new coronavirus cases per day rises to more than double what it was during the summer. In terms of the vaccine, the federal government announces its plan to send out 6.4 million doses of the Pfizer's vaccine within 24 hours of its authorization. This authorization is expected to be in mid-December, where the vaccine will be distributed to the most vulnerable groups first, including healthcare workers and a few other groups. The CDC advises families to stay safe during Thanksgiving, as the pandemic's wrath is not over yet. On a slightly different note, New York City's first Black mayor, David Dinkins, died at 93 on Monday evening in his home in Manhattan. David Dinkins served as mayor in the early 1990s, advocating for economic equality, education for people of color, and made efforts to heal racial division. Not only did Dinkins provide much-needed calmness after the previous brash Mayor Edward Koch, but he also remains as the city's first and only Black mayor thus far. Dinkins is known by many for his admirable efforts to turn the city around. Mayor Bill de Blasio remembered Dinkins in a social media post, saying, quote, "Shalane and I are mourning a truly great man. David Dinkins simply set the city on a better path," end quote. That's all I have tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Back to you guys.
Dawn Sawyer announced the university's new Title IX coordinator on November 20th. Dennis Akwazi-Kwarting will be stepping into the role after previously working at the College of Mount St. Vincent. As the Title IX coordinator, he will be responsible for coordinating and implementing Title IX policies and overseeing compliance with state and federal Title IX laws. To the Quinnipiac community, Katherine Harris was a leader, educator, and a friend. Harris served as chair and program director of the physical therapy department until she passed away this April. Now the university has established the Katherine Harris Professional Development Fund to honor her life and work. The fund will provide professional development activities to students, alumni, faculty, and clinical partners that speak to her passion for the physical therapy program, professional development, and advocacy for the profession. With frequent changes in testing procedures, international students at Quinnipiac have faced difficulties returning home for the end of the semester.
When the campus moved to red alert about 2 weeks ago, some international students made the decision at that point to reschedule their flights and try to leave home earlier, given that classes were going to be virtual. When the on-campus testing that was done in the Burke-Con Recreation Center didn't fit into their schedule of when they needed the results for their flight, or in some cases for their home government in order to show that they were negative, the Student Health Services team was able to accommodate them, and they could get tested at the health center.
The coronavirus pandemic is taking its toll on every country in the world. For this and more international news, let's go to Hannah Mursky.
Thanks, Cassidy. Let's take a look at what is going on around the world. For the first time in 40 years, China launched a new mission to bring back 4.5 pounds of rocks and debris to further enhance human understanding of the moon and solar system. The probe Chang'e 5, named after the Chinese goddess of the sun, took off from Wenchang Launch Center Tuesday. The last time a sample was brought back from the moon was in 1976 by the Soviet Union. The robotic spacecraft separated from the rock minutes after the launch and will most likely land 3 days from takeoff. Once the robot collects samples, it will be put into a return capsule that will be sent back to Earth. While China continues to look to upgrade their space findings, one of Hong Kong's most known pro-democracy protesters, Joshua Wong, is expected to face up to 5 years in jail after pleading guilty to unlawful assembly during last year's mass protests. Campaigners Ivan Lam and Agnes Cho are also facing the same charges relating directly to leading, inciting, and participating in protests before the Republic of China placed new national security laws on Hong Kong. Had China placed those laws on Hong Kong earlier, the 3 protesters could have faced life in prison. While detained, Wong said, quote, "What are we doing now is to explain the value of freedom to the world through our compassion to whom we love, so much that we are willing to sacrifice the freedom of our own," end quote. Wong, Lam, and Chow will remain in custody until December 2nd, where they will find out their sentence. While tension isn't dying down in Hong Kong, neither is it in Ethiopia. After Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed gave the Tigray region a 72-hour deadline to surrender, or else the army will circle in and attack, the leader of the Tigray region, Debretsion Gebremichael, has refused. Tigray's People Liberation Front, also known as TPLF, is the largest political party that used to be a militia force who attempted to overthrow the Ethiopian government back in 1991. Gebremichael announced Tigray will fight for the North region. The United Nations says if this goes any further, it could be identified as a humanitarian crisis. This is all I have for this week's international news update. Back to you, Cassidy.
Many are wondering what to expect for Q-thon next semester. The well-loved Quinnipiac tradition will see a significant format change. For more on this, Q30 News spoke with Q-thon's executive director, Hannah Baker.
Myself and a couple of us were super determined to be able to give the Quinnipiac students an in-person experience. So we wanted to kind of make this happen. So we met with our advisor and just kind of talked about the different options, one being going virtual again, or potentially doing it in person. So after compiling a very long document of different ideas and ways that we can control like COVID regulations and stuff, it was super exciting to get the news the other day that we are able to announce that it can be outdoors this year.
Many Americans rely on national election polls for campaign results. Now, many of those institutions are under fire, including one that hits especially close to home for Bobcats. Skylar Haynes has the story.
The first ever election poll was in 1824, the presidential election between John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. And now millions tune into media coverage every election, waiting for survey data and voter projections.
It was very stressful following the election. I looked at like projections and I don't know, I had a feeling it was going to be as close as it was.
The Quinnipiac University polls has been a leading source worldwide for decades, with over 1,200 polls being conducted since its start. But who are behind the telephones and tabulations? Alyssa Murphy is just one student whose campus job had international implications.
We needed to stick to the script that we are given, and we needed to be very straightforward with the people that we're on the phone with.
While President-elect Biden's team is starting their transition and the current administration continues poll count disputes, many are looking back at election week and wondering how the polls got so much wrong.
We are sticking to a very strict, well-calculated system. I think it's still a pretty accurate representation. If there's any issues, it's more just certain people they don't want to answer their phone line.
I think that Quinnipiac does do a good job in like remaining neutral in its position.
The way that it's technically calculated, it should be accurate. So it's just more a matter of the people and what the people are doing that will skew the results.
Q30 was able to obtain an exclusive statement from Doug Schwartz, the director of Quinnipiac's polls. He says, quote, "A full examination of what went wrong with polls this year is going to take a while. I still need to see the final election results and exit polls. Without those, I'm unable to make even a preliminary hypothesis." While he added that an analysis will take 6 months or more, former student surveyors have been speaking out about what they think skewed the numbers.
When you're doing the polling, the one thing that they tell us is that we need to try to stay on the phone with them for as long as we can, but if people are not cooperative, if they don't want to answer the questions, if they have issues with the questions and they yell and they get angry, we actually have to terminate the phone call and terminate the results. That's why it's actually so difficult to get enough results.
And while the country questions if election polls have a purpose anymore, those at Quinnipiac feel the polling center isn't going anywhere. This is Skylar Haynes for Q30 News.
So much is happening in the world of politics. To help us stay on top of it all, here's Luca Triant.
Thank you, Cassidy. There has been a lot of news going on in and around Washington, D.C. these past few days. Let's get right on it and jump into it. This past Monday, the United States General Services Administrator Emily Murphy has opened the way for a formal transition between President-elect Joe Biden and the current President Donald Trump. While the Electoral College does not meet to actually choose the next president until December 14th, the GSA's decision has allowed for a formal transition to begin. Millions of dollars have been opened up to provide for the transition process, while current administration officials are now formally able to coordinate with the incoming Biden team. Murphy has said that her decision was, according to the letter she sent to Biden, not made out of fear or favoritism. Instead, she says, the GSA is meant to ascertain, not impose, the incoming president to his new position. Although the transition process is still ongoing, the election is still not over, according to President Donald Trump. He and his lawyers, namely former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, have been pushing to claim fraud in states across the country. However, 17 out of the 19 cases so far have been dropped or dismissed, with officials of each state saying there is no evidence to back Trump and his team's accusations. A federal judge in Pennsylvania, Trump's latest challenge, dismissed the case just this week. However, with around 2 months left in his term, the president has vowed to continue his fight, saying on Twitter, quote, "I believe we will prevail," end quote. Even before the GSA's decision to formally begin the new presidential transition process, President-elect Joe Biden has been building his team for his eventual presidency. The former vice president has picked several people to fill key positions in his cabinet, with chief of staff being taken up by Ron Klain, Antony Blinken for Secretary of State, and even a special presidential envoy for climate role being filled by former Secretary of State John Kerry. While there are still many seats to be filled, with the transition process now begun, the president-elect may have more of a chance to form his team as the countdown to inauguration begins. Until then, we will have to see who he chooses, but that is all I have for today. Cassidy, back to you.
The Hampton Police Department are partnering with Mayor Kurt Lang to provide a new community partnership program. To hear more about its impact on Hampton residents, I'll turn it over to Melanie Carreri.
Hampton's residents, business owners, and police are given a new opportunity to work together to better the community. The town's Department of Justice decided to move forward with a program called the Strengthening Police and Community Partnerships Program, or for short, the SPCP program. The program will have citizens of different groups talk about how they think the town law enforcement could be improved by the police department. The department has high hopes for the program.
And I just think that this is really going to be a good opportunity for the town of Hampton and the Hampton Police Department to work together with the community moving forward. And I hope a lot of good ideas are generated from the group, and I hope there's a lot of ideas that we can come up with solutions for it and improve our overall operations.
In a news release, the town mayor says the program is all about building relationships and trust and offering a space and a process with a proven track record in an effort to really hear each other and work together. The program can be another strong step toward building a safer Hampton for all. However, some town council members and residents have doubts on the conversations that will take place in meetings.
How do we create a subcommittee to talk about what needs are between Hampton and New Haven and what things are driving these issues with crime?
Members of the police department predict they will become closer with the residents.
My personal hope is that it just fosters a better relationship between the citizens and the police department.
The meetings will take place virtually on Adobe Connect. The program will run from November 30th through December 7th. Melanie Carreri, Q30 News.
Don Sawyer, Quinnipiac's Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion, has co-edited a new book called Hip Hop and Dismantling the School-to-Prison Pipeline. The book was written for grade school students to find strategies for creating communities that can define the school-to-prison pipeline and identify its negative effects on society. We have a momentous occasion to look forward to today. It is the return of Quinnipiac sports, something I know many people have been anxiously waiting for. To catch us up on what to expect, we have Sergio de la Espriella.
The Quinnipiac men's hockey team has had its season opener postponed, as 2 positive COVID-19 cases have been reported within the team. Their home opener against AIC has been postponed to December 26th, while the games against LIU and Clarkson have both been canceled. Now, Quinnipiac is one of 4 ECAC schools still playing hockey in 2020, as the other 8 ECAC schools, including Ivy League schools such as Yale and Harvard, have decided against playing hockey this season. Now, as of now, the men's hockey team has 7 games remaining on their schedule. Moving on to the hardwood, the women's basketball team will not be playing in the Hall of Fame Challenge at the Mohegan Sun, as it has been canceled due to COVID-19 related circumstances. The Bobcats were slated to take on UConn in their first game, and then either Maine or Mississippi State in their second game. The Bobcats opened up their season today against Providence, and their next game will be on December 5th against Fordham. And finally, the men's basketball team opened up its season today against Fairleigh Dickinson. The Bobcats were scheduled to take on Maine this Sunday before that game was canceled due to Maine pausing all winter sports team activities. Now, as of now, the Bobcats are scheduled to play in the Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off tournament at the Mohegan Sun. The games would take place next Wednesday and Friday, where they are scheduled to take on Drexel and Albany, respectively. Back to you, Cassidy.
Hunger and food insecurity is a reality that many families face, especially this year with the jobs lost due to the coronavirus pandemic. So here's how local community food banks, along with community members, are helping out and giving back to ensure that all families have a hearty meal this holiday season. The Food Bank of Lower Fairfield County is located in the city of Stamford. It is an independent food bank that services 90 different agencies from Wilton to Greenwich, including the Salvation Army and Person to Person. Kate Lombardo, who is the founding executive director since 2003, takes hunger very seriously as it is something very personal to her.
It's community-based. That's how we like it. We know our clients. We know them, and it's driven mostly by the community's needs. You know, what does the community want to eat? Not does what the government have a surplus of.
The personal connection was present as community members dropped off food all throughout the day.
Thanksgiving is the one time of the year that people who needed help during the year but were too embarrassed to ask for it. Thanksgiving's the one time that they'll ask for it.
Albert Kokach, a member of the Union Memorial Church, stopped by to give his donation and shared his thoughts on giving back.
It's hard because I'm a poor person, so I know how poor people have felt all their life.
Reporting for Q30 News, I'm Jennifer Cuevas.
That is all the time we have for today's Q30 Newscast. Make sure to follow Q30 News on Facebook and Twitter, as well as Q30 Television, to receive the latest in Quinnipiac news. For everyone behind the scenes, I'm Cassidy Berger. Thanks for watching.